I've heard a lot that Tarika's approach is very different. So what is Tarika's approach?
So see, when you get a cut on your finger, it heals on its own in a few days, right? If you don't disturb it, right? So my work in nutrition with, most of my clients is to get their body's energy back to its original state. So both Ayurveda and Macrobiotics are about increasing the body's potential. And when we do that, things happen naturally.
Brilliant. Would you agree with dosage makes the poison? Like in little amounts is okay, or certain foods should just be avoided?
So I call this a Bermuda Triangle, which is the three things, bread or flour, dairy and sugar. If one takes excess amounts of these, like a ship in the Bermuda Triangle sinks, our health sinks.
घर का खाना is supposed to be healthy and it's considered healthy कि घर का है तो healthy होगा, but I can say this with confidence, 90% of it is unhealthy.
Yeah.
The way it is cooked.
Between the will of the body and the will of the mind, the will of the body will win.
Wow.
So, if you...
Let that sink in.
Yeah, let that sink in.
What is alcohol doing to our body?
The main thing with alcohol though is that it depletes minerals from the body. And that is something people are not realizing.
Let's make this the only podcast you'll ever need to watch if weight loss is your goal.
Sure.
एक गुलाब जामुन में लगभग 5 से 6 चम्मच चीनी डलती है और 1 चम्मच चीनी आती है करीब 2 फुट के एक गन्ने से। और अगर हमें गुलाब जामुन का अगर हम मैथ्स करते हैं तो एक गुलाब जामुन में करीब एक 12 फुट का गन्ना होता है। कैन यू कंपेयर द टू? आई नो इट मे स्टिल नॉट इन्फ्लुएंस योर बिहेवियर, you'll still have the gulab jamun, but just know that is not having sugar in moderation. This one is with Tarika Ahuja. So I've learned about Tarika very recently. I've been introduced to her by some friends and I've been hearing that Tarika's approach is very different. She works at this beautiful intersection of Ayurveda and Macrobiotics. She's one of the very few professionals in India who talk about this subject, and her approach to nutrition is very different and holistic. Now, holistic is the first word that is associated with her, but I've used it later in the introduction because, it's just such a misused term and everything is considered holistic and everyone claims their approach to be holistic. But when you listen to this conversation, you will know how this approach is very different from what you've heard before. Like, this definitely made me think about nutrition differently after I finished recording the episode and finished listening to it. Tarika also does one-on-one nutrition coaching. She also helps corporates by doing the likes of workshops, webinars, even cooking sessions. She's got a very different take on all of this. But as I always say, don't believe us blindly, or anybody for that matter. Just do your own research, try things out for yourself and see how it works. Yeah, enjoy the episode. Without further ado, here's Tarika Ahuja and me in the Find Your Ultra podcast. Indulge away. Tarika Ahuja, welcome to the Find Your Ultra podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you.
How have you been? How's your day been?
Day's been excellent. It's been a nice, relaxing day with lots of nutrition calls and some corporate webinars. So,
Lovely.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this conversation a lot because I've recently been introduced to you. I've heard amazing things from people about you and different people. So wherever there was this like a period of 7-10 days, whoever I'm meeting is saying great things about Tarika.
Oh my God,
so,
that's amazing. Thankful.
Yeah, so we've got to do a podcast. So,
Right.
And also nutrition is a subject I've been passionate about for a very long time. I've been studying and reading things, and
that's
the
amazing.
more I read, the more confused I got.
Yeah.
That's the only problem.
That is one thing that happens these
Yeah.
days with nutrition for sure,
Absolutely. And unfortunately, human body is such a beautiful thing, right? It's been designed in such an amazing manner. It's not
Absolutely.
maybe not every human body is beautiful to look at, but it's a beautiful machine. The way it's been designed, the way it
Absolutely.
functions, and the intricacies and the details
The
that
resilience of the human body is just so amazing as
Yeah,
well.
and its
what it can
adaptability.
cope with,
Yeah.
cope up with, yeah.
Yeah, and we misuse that a lot.
Absolutely. And we stretch ourselves much more than we should.
Yeah.
And in the process, we never really realize what the true human potential is because we're so busy going, yo-yo on our potential of how much damage we can tolerate.
Yeah.
But then we're not actually going into what a real human body can do and mind can do, and that's part of what I'd really like to bring this life to my, to my audience. And
No, beautifully said. And precisely. And unfortunately, all of this talk has been reduced to the talk of weight loss and,
Yes.
aesthetics. Whereas the human potential is so much more, is about so much more.
Yeah.
So weight loss is definitely one component of it, but it's not it gets way more
Attention
attention and
deserves.
importance than it deserves,
Absolutely.
and which is why we also go after it in all the wrong ways. And the discussion
That
has
is why there's so many diets out there. Like, you name it, and there are like about 10 new names of diets.
Yeah.
And that's kind of bizarre. But
Yeah, and I want to talk about that. So to
Sure.
begin with, I mean, I've heard a lot that Tarika's approach is very different. Not the traditional, but the popular approaches that we see today, which is calorie counting and various other things. So what is Tarika's approach? And also, what is macrobiotics and Ayurveda? I actually don't know anything about all of these. So
Okay.
not about your approach, nothing about your
Absolutely. So
macrobiotics.
we'll dive
Please
right into
educate
it.
us.
Absolutely. When you go to a nutritionist, when there's a lot of calorie counting, like you said correctly, and there's also a lot of nutrient discussion, like vitamin K, vitamin B, and all of those things, right? Now, all of that is true, all of that is valid, but it's not the whole approach. It's not the big picture. It's like a horse with blinders. You're just seeing certain aspects of what is necessary, but not the whole aspect, of nutrition. So I'll give you a very simple example, and that'll probably clarify it really well for everybody out there, is whole grains or brown rice, right? Now, if you go to a nutritionist, they would say it's really good because it has fiber, it has nutrients, and it has a bran and everything, and it's good for your digestion and gut health. And while all of that is really correct and absolutely fine, there is a lot more to whole grains and brown rice. It's a whole seed. It's a whole seed, which is the fruit as well as the seed, right? So it's what we eat, the brown rice or the whole grain, and it's what we sow back into the soil. And there's an old idiom that says 1 grain, 1,000 grains, which means that when you sow 1 grain, and of course, if the soil is good and the environment is good, which right now is deteriorated,
It's conducive,
but if it's good, it gives back 1,000 grains. A good grain will give back 1,000 grains. And the purpose of eating whole grains or a healthy diet is this, that when we eat well, and that's what I was talking about, the initial human potential, our energy to give back is 1,000 times.
Wow.
So it's about, everybody has their personal goals. Then you have goals for your family. Then you have goals for your society, for your country, and then your world. So only if you can fulfill your own goals with your energy and your families and the society around, the community, and then take it further, then you can do a lot more for the world around as well. So those are the stages. But yeah, coming to the nutrient aspect of it. Now, if you take 1, grain, like I said, it gives back 1,000 grains. But imagine now the grain is cracked and it becomes dalia, or then it's made into like flour and it's atta and made into roti or into bread or into pasta. Now imagine sowing pasta and bread in soil.
Yeah.
Are you going to get anything back?
No.
Pretty much nothing, right? Maybe fungus after 2-3 days, right? So the point here is that whole grains have the power to regenerate. And if they have the power to regenerate and reproduce a whole new plant, they definitely regenerate our cells and tissues a lot better. But the thing is, we're so far apart from eating these foods that we have lost the microbiome to digest these. And we have lost the ability to digest these,
Right.
So we have to slowly introduce them back into a diet, retrain our gut, our body to recognize them and, absorb the nutrients from them. And there will come a time in, I feel 2 to 5 to 7 years that you'll really start benefiting from this. It's not a quick approach. And that's why people are like, we want, quick approach. We want results within a month or 2.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work like that. Of course, you feel definitely a lot better and lose some weight or, feel less bloated and better, clearer mind and energy. But the real benefits come in a few years,
Amazing.
So that's
Yeah,
the
I mean,
difference.
there's just so much more to it,
Yeah.
which also I think kind of answers why, and in fact, maybe you can elaborate on this a little bit. Why shouldn't people focus just on weight loss?
Weight loss is a side effect of eating well.
Yeah.
When a person eats natural foods, whole grains, beans, pulses, lentils, vegetables, digestive condiments, fermented food, soups, salads, just a variety of healthy plant-based farm-to-table kind of foods, the body doesn't have any excess over there, right? It's the whole grain is giving you whole energy. As soon as you refine it, it becomes weaker. And then you need more of it also, and then you take a lot more in calories, you put on weight. Then there's so much industrialization that has happened. I think industrialization and commercialization of food is one of the main problems that people have put on weight and need to now work towards reducing weight. So those are the main issues.
Maybe hormones and so many other, because all the processes are
Yes.
connected, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because आपको तो खाली ये लग रहा है कि आपने calories कम कर ली हैं या उससे
Right.
weight loss हो जाएगा,
Right.
and that's your focus. But what does that do to your body? Like, if you, for example, do a crash diet.
Right. For example, yeah. So weight loss, like when people get into weight loss diets, a lot of the people start having things like eggs. They're like, eggs helps you lose weight. A high protein diet, a low carb diet helps you reduce weight. But there are side effects to everything. You're only looking at an egg or some form of animal protein is high in protein, and that's why it's giving you energy or helping you reduce weight while giving you good energy, right? But the truth is, an egg, well, from a holistic nutrition perspective, is also coming from the reproductive organs of an animal, right? It is their reproductive system. And so it affects our reproductive system. And so eating eggs, it also looks like our bladder, the human bladder, So it begins to affect it. And it looks like the ovaries. It begins, especially for a woman's body, it begins to affect it. So while we have taken in so many weakening foods. Like I said, the modern world is full of weakening foods, and our digestion is weakened, and we're having so much of sugar and cookies and all sorts of things that weaken the body. So while a little bit of egg gives you this, sort of power, so that you kind of forget about that temporary weakness and you start feeling like superhuman and feel really good and say, oh yeah, this must be the right thing to eat. So a little bit of that can help people in this day and age to find a little bit of balance from that extra weakness. But as soon as people take it to the extreme of having it daily or even 2 eggs a day, some people have like 4 eggs a day or 10 eggs a day.
So all the gym bros have been having like 8 in the morning and 8 in the evening. So egg whites mostly.
Egg whites. It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot, and it's affecting the system in a whole different way. Plus, it's also what are some
of the ways in which it might be affecting? Would you want to touch
on? So the reproductive system, for one. 2, the assimilation shifts. So because this is high protein, high saturated fat, the body has gotten used to, having something that's so fatty and high in protein that it quickly gives you good energy. It's almost like sugar. Sugar gives you good energy. Then you don't want to have slow glycemic foods, right? So the high protein saturated fats, you have it. It makes you feel superhuman. You feel really good and stuff. But at the same time, you're basically living on borrowed animal energy, right? Because if you have so much of animal protein to give you that kind of energy, you're feeling like, oh, you're like, you have that much energy and this must be the right food. But as soon as you leave that and you start having grains and dals and sabzis, you start feeling bloated or you start feeling like you can't eat it. So it basically hinders your ability to digest regular foods. Plus, it is very high, because it's high in saturated fats, it also leads to cholesterol issues, a fatty liver, PCOS. So all these modern day lifestyle problems are coming, from us shifting from a natural farm to table diet to having lesser of the natural foods, more of the refined foods, and much more of the saturated fatty foods.
For sure.
That
and
is
then
what's
when you say it affects our various energy systems and it affects our ability to digest the organs as well.
Exactly.
Are you speaking just about eggs or all kinds of animal products largely?
I'm talking about all kind, even dairy. Even dairy can affect. I would say I definitely...
Tell me about dairy, because dairy is a really controversial one. And so, like the world's divided into camps. There's a vegan camp, there's a keto camp, there are like 20 others. But veganism, I mean, I'm a vegetarian, not a vegan, but largely like I have ghee and maybe just a couple of others. I don't have too many animal products.
Right.
But I've heard from people who've turned vegan, even people from Haryana. Haryana, they say doodh, dahi, ghee is the food. Like, usi ki wajah se hame taakat aati hai. That's what they say.
Yes.
Right? Even those guys have turned vegan, and they say not just weight, but they say inflammation has reduced. So, I mean, some of the good athletes know about inflammation. They can say the recovery is faster. So, not one, many people. But I'm just wondering, are they like, is there science behind this, or have they just heard this too many times on social media?
No, there's definitely a difference. There's definitely difference in the level of, fatigue and sluggishness that a person will feel, plus the quality of dairy. There's so much commercial dairy available out there. So let's track back on why people thought that dairy is important, right? A lot of people think dairy is important because it gives you calcium. But what we're forgetting is calcium is a multifaceted approach. One, we need to increase foods that are rich in calcium, right? That's one thing. Two, we need to stop foods that deplete and leach calcium from our body. So when we eat acidic foods, our pH balance is to be maintained at 7.4. And our stomach pH balance is different. This is the blood pH balance. In different parts of the body, pH balance needs to be, different, in different metrics. And when our body gets too acidic with, taking the wrong foods, taking commercial acidic foods, too much sugar, flour, a lot of, different things, the body wants to heal. So what it does is it goes to the bones, it goes to the nervous system, and it says, knock, knock, give me some calcium, give me some zinc, give me some minerals. I need to alkalize this acidity instantly for the human body to survive.
Wow.
So as a survival instinct, it leaches calcium out of the body, So our bones get weaker, why osteoporosis has increased. If you really think about it, how is it that countries that have the most dairy have the highest instance of osteoporosis as well?
Okay.
Like India has a very high instance. The US has a high, and there's so much dairy all over, and people are having it in excess as well, right?
And would you say would you agree with dosage makes the poison? Like in little amounts is okay, or certain foods should just be avoided?
In little amounts is okay, and and the quality, both. The quantity and the quality both matter. So like I was talking about calcium, one is taking foods rich in calcium. Two, not taking foods that leach calcium out of the body. Three, improving your calcium assimilation. And that is nutrient assimilation. So when your gut microbiome is good, when you're having enough fiber, when you're having enough foods that create hydrating, sort of circulation and good flow in the body, all of those things help you absorb well, from the food that you're eating.
Interesting.
And you don't have extra mucus, extra fat, more acidity.
I heard you talk about mucus in dairy as well.
Yes.
Tell us more about that. Because, like you said, we are a dairy-heavy consumption country.
Absolutely. And also, like you said about moderation. So, I'll give you an example. Like, people would have, say, aloo ka paratha with butter on a Sunday. That used to be like a weekend food. Now it's become a treat. Yeah. It's become a daily breakfast for many people. Yeah.
Punjabis in particular.
And exactly. And not just that. Now, take that further. Now, in the villages, they had cows. They had that much milk coming out. They took a little bit of butter and the whole family had to share it.
Right.
Now there is dairy farming happening where they are not only serving just milk and butter and ghee, which were the softer forms of dairy, but they're condensing it and making it into cheese cubes and cheese slices. And where people have like 2 to 3 a day in a sandwich. Kids these days have so much of cheese cubes and cheese slices. That is excess in the body. That's not even... it's industrialization that's making it possible for them as well.
Yeah, and we're not even yet.
So that's extra fat and extra mucus, and that's why people have so much more asthma. There's so much more allergy in kids. I mean, I have so many parents coming up to me mostly for digestive issues and allergy problems. That's really become big out there. And that's definitely got to do with a lot more bread, a lot more sugar, which also in the liver, when you have excess sugar, becomes fat and mucus in the body, and a lot of dairy. So I call this a Bermuda Triangle, basically. My first book on children's health 12 years ago was basically, I got this term called the Bermuda Triangle, which is the three things, bread or flour, dairy, and sugar. If one takes excess amounts of these, like a ship in the Bermuda Triangle sinks, our health sinks.
Wow.
So these are the three things we want to not have in excess.
One of the downsides of arranging everything and setting up a podcast really quickly is that you get very little time to do research. So I would have ideally loved to, read all the books that you've written. Please tell us the books, like the book on children in particular. Sounds fascinating. I have a 3-year-old and I don't know what to feed her.
I have.
Apart from
I wrote a book about 12 years ago that's actually now not available anymore. And I'm rewriting it. So it'll be published in about a year or two, my new book on children's health. And the book that's right now floating and out there has over 100 recipes and really deep, clear explanations about a lot of
what's the book called?
It is is called the asthma cure. And even though the name is the asthma cure, it's actually really more of a lifestyle book. It helps heart disease, PCOS, pretty much everything.
Why did you name it Asthma Cure?
I started off with that, but then because I went into the depths of healing, but when you go into the depths of healing principles, healing universal principles are the same. Healing digestion principles are the same. So it could have been applied to almost any lifestyle related disease. I'm not saying any disease out there, but most lifestyle related disease have pretty much similar, at least 70% of the principles. Then 30% vary based on your body type, on the individual and the type of problem that they have, Right. So yeah, that's why I feel it helps pretty much everybody, but the name's done now. So we'll do another one, I guess.
Yeah, but give us a peek into the book. So give us like a trailer of the books that whoever's listening to this feels tempted to go pick it up.
Yeah. So
What's
the
in
book I start off with, and I'll get back to your first question as well. I start off with explaining what macrobiotics is, what Ayurveda is, what veganism is, what is the difference how is it different from vegetarianism. So discussing all four of these approaches for like a layperson who's been so confused.
Yes.
So that's like a good start for anybody to really understand all of these. Then I go into the macrobiotic approach to healing asthma. And that's going into, so macro means large and biotic means life. So basically macrobiotics is about, has principles and lifestyle and food habits and practices that bring about a large life, which is to say a long life. So it's a practice for longevity, you could say, in that sense, So it's not just about veganism. So how veganism is different. Veganism is coming from a certain emotion, a very high emotion that they don't want to eat animal proteins and they, So it's definitely a very high emotion, but it's coming from a sense of emotion still. Whereas macrobiotics and Ayurveda are more concerned about balance. And also there is such a great understanding of how both of these in slightly different ways are connected to nature, how we as human beings are connected to nature. So there are 5 seasons in nature or 5 elements in nature. And in both Ayurveda and macrobiotics, we have the 5 seasons and the 5 elements, and how those 5 elements that happen in nature, which is, wood, fire, soil, metal, water, and then in Ayurveda, that's slightly different. That happens in our body and in our organs as well. And there's a, grain attached to each season. There is a cooking process attached to each season. So for example, for lung health is connected to metal energy. And that is connected to brown rice and, it's connected to certain ways of cooking, which is long stew cooking or pressure cooking, as opposed to like a spring diet, which will be more salads and steamed vegetables and blanched vegetables. And so, there's a difference in the energy of how the environment is and for our body to align with that. And that's when we are more in balance. So that's the basic,
Would you mind telling me a little bit more about help us understand this whole process better? Let's talk about, let's say, brown rice.
Right.
And you said cooking processes and everything also attached to it.
Absolutely.
So how does that make a difference? Like, how's brown rice, or like when we talk about seasons in India, do you think, I don't know, I'm looking at the Indian diet.
Right.
And in fact, you look at the modern food environment, and I've almost forgotten what is the Indian diet, because
there's such a mix of everything.
Yeah.
And there's no longer,
geographically, we are so diverse and culturally, and everywhere you go, you have different kinds
people
of
are not eating seasonal anymore.
Correct.
That is a problem,
and everything
right?
is available
at all times. So that is definitely a problem.
What is the Indian diet, and what is the way we were supposed to eat?
The Indian diet is actually very beautiful. If you look at the simple Indian thali, that is real food. That's how we're supposed to eat.
Nowadays, the ones that we see are very big.
No, not the commercial thalis. I just mean if you imagine a thali of the plate that you have, there's supposed to be like, say, 30-40% of grains, 30-40% of vegetables, 15-20% of protein, some condiments, some, digestive condiments like lemon pickle, and not the very oily and spicy and those ones with red color and stuff, and the commercial ones these days, but the homemade traditional ones in mustard oil or without oil, and then sesame seed condiments, little bit of fermented foods just to help the gut microbiome, and that pretty much is a really good format. Now, of course, we like I said, we've all gone through this whole weakening, with each passing generation. So maybe eating like that, every single meal gets a bit heavy for some people. So yeah, sure, some meals can be lighter. Some meals can be like soups with like a fried rice with lots of vegetables and some, chickpeas thrown into it. Or just make it like a simpler one meal format, or however we want to make it lighter, that can move around a little bit. But that is really,
Like it's
it's a
diverse and it's
traditional,
sort of
and it's diverse, and it's a,
holds.
so we have on our plate brown rice or millet or roti, or corn or amaranth, which is rajgira, and buckwheat, which is kuttu, and ragi, finger millet. And so we should have like a variety of grains that we have. Then we have a variety of beans and dals. These days everybody's just having like the lighter dals because they feel, again, because the body has weakened, they feel lighter dals is all I can manage to digest. So yahi acha hoega. But one should be able to digest kala chana, white chana, rongi, and kulit ki dal, horse gram dal, so amazing for the body. So variety of pulses, between the dals and beans. Then a variety of vegetables, which is like root vegetables, round vegetables, and leafy green vegetables. So I'll describe a simple dish to you,
Please do.
like a winter dish.
Wonderful.
Now imagine you have bathwe ka sabzi with carrots and onions. So you just take bathwe ka saag, and you take onion, and you take carrots. Now imagine our body, and if this is the waste here, now imagine this to be the same as the soil, the ground level. Now above this is where the bathwa grows. It grows above ground.
Yep.
So it nourishes, and you know how it grows up and it spreads out like this? So that's exactly how, it looks like our bronchi in the lungs. So it nourishes our lungs. Plus it is so high in fiber and dark leafy greens, like the iron and everything else, that it begins to help our heart health as well. Bring down the cholesterol. So it helps the upper organs. Then round onions, it's round, it helps the middle organs. It helps the pancreas, the stomach, especially when you cook it to its natural sweetness. You cook it long enough that it becomes nice and sweet with, the right amount of salt. So and then we have the carrot, which looks like our legs. So when you saute something as simple as onions with carrots and then add bathwa and a little lemon and salt and pepper to it, it's a delicious dish. And you can add jeera, whatever one wants to add, garlic or ginger, anything. But that's a delicious, healthy dish, and it's nourishing our entire body, head to toe.
What oils are you using there?
I'm using mostly cold-pressed oil. And the good thing is, we have, in India, they used to say in traditional India, ancient India, there is a kadava oil and a meetha oil.
Okay.
Yeah. So the kadava oil was mustard oil and the meetha oil is sesame oil. So the traditional seed oils in our country is what we've been using. All these refined oils that have come in and, try claiming to be heart healthy and stuff are not good. I mean, I recommend maybe somebody can use a little rice bran oil if they're deep frying for a party once in a while, occasionally. But I wouldn't use rice bran as my daily oil. I would certainly use mustard oil and sesame as my daily oil. Yeah. And if I'm, in a place where coconut is seasonal, or even if I'm not now, a little bit of coconut oil can be added to one's diet. If one really wants to add a little bit of olive, good quality olive once in a while, and a little bit of peanut oil once in a while. But those are little higher. I mean, seeds are always better than the nuts. So, the mustard and sesame should be the original oils. And very little ghee for those who are not vegan can be added.
Okay.
To cooking
But mustard and sesame, you're saying
should be the primary oils in any kitchen. Wow. I feel, yeah.
That's wonderful. And is there science behind it? Because I've spoken with a couple of people and they've said, like sesame in particular, like all of these, you have to be very careful with. Are they also very refined? Because refined oils are terrible, like all the
of course,
vegetable
absolutely,
refined oils.
Absolutely. So the thing here is that a person who will be concerned about, like sesame oil or mustard oil being maybe harmful because they're refined is if they're eating a lot of oil. So the point is, if we have a little bit of oil and we put only a tablespoon of oil per dish, maybe two if it's, once in a while you're making it a little richer, like a fried rice or something. That's for the whole family, so that's perfectly fine. So people who need to think a lot about the quantities are the ones who will worry about these things. Otherwise, for others, it's fine to have a little bit of oil.
And in case of oils in particular,
and oils help you absorb the minerals from the food as well.
Okay.
Especially when I'm having a food, dish that is rich in calcium, I definitely add a little more oil because it really helps take it right to the bones. They say that for ghee as well, but that's also true for oils, especially sesame oil, Yeah.
Like what's rich in calcium? What are you adding that?
What's
oil
rich in
to it?
calcium? So that would be dark leafy greens, rajma, kulad ki dal, all the dark colored foods. Basically, whenever you see foods that are darker in color, it means that they have more, antioxidants, different kinds, and they have more minerals.
Oh,
So that's why they say, in the good old times, like dark leafy greens khao, kala chana khao, kala chana ka soup, is really good for the kidneys and stuff. And there's so many things out there. Horse gram is exactly the same. Bhatki dal has almost vanished. That's soybean, right? And there's this whole fear about soya, that don't take it if you have thyroid, don't take it.
estrogen high and
Estrogen
whatnot.
high and whatnot, right? But it's a person is not going to have those issues if you have that once in 10 days.
Right.
And a fresh dal, and bhatki dal
And
is
in any case, you're saying having a variety is the way to go.
absolutely. पहाड़ों में यही तो खाते हैं. They have horse gram dal, kulthi dal, they have bhatki dal, they have moong ki dal. So they have all these wonderful
delicious,
combinations. It's
yeah.
delicious and it keeps them strong and going in the cold region. It's the modern lifestyle of the city, sitting in front of the computer, eating too much refined foods, orderable on Blinkit and Swiggy. That's what is bringing the health down. Adding too much of, butter in the fridge and cheese in the fridge and white bread in the fridge. So,
Yeah.
it's all about what you're choosing in totality.
Wonderful. And so you never look at food in terms of the macros and the micros. You don't look at that approach.
I
at all.
don't actually usually look at that approach. Yeah, I don't go.
Even in case of some, let's say somebody's an athlete and they're sort of lifting heavy and their protein intake needs to be high, you would still add protein-rich foods and you don't obsess over.
I don't go into the counting of the protein or the
Yeah.
calories ever. However,
So that 0.8 gram, 1 gram, or 1.5 gram.
overall,
per
I have
kg.
noticed whatever I do give somebody intuitively. There are a few times that few clients have requested me to really do the count for them, and when I did the count for them, it was matching their weight and
Right.
everything that it was.
Because you've
So I've already experienced. So I've already added kala chana salad with green mung sprouts in it. That's already giving them enough protein. I've already added enough things in their diet that are protein rich. So ultimately it works out. But I don't do it every single time. That's not
Sure.
my approach. Yeah.
Is there so do you agree with, because there's a vast difference, but so the ICMR, I believe, is the Indian body, right?
Mhm.
And CDC is the American.
Mhm.
So ICMR says 0.8 grams per kg of body weight.
Right.
That's how much protein you need. CDC, I believe, I could be wrong about this, but one of the bodies or general belief out there from the experts
Right.
in this field is 1 gram per pound of body weight, which is almost double
That's a lot.
the Indian.
That is
Yeah.
definitely a lot.
Yeah.
So I think the 0.8 is definitely closer to what it should be.
What it should be.
And per kg, but per pound, that's just a lot. That's too much, And so coming back to.
And how about, another view that protein is overhyped in its stocks and everything.
Yeah, that's what I was coming to for athletes.
And what's the, like, fiber doesn't get as much importance, I guess.
Right.
It, or
actually nowadays, a lot of the research is around that athletes need the right carbs. So luckily that is definitely diminishing about only protein in the sports world. That's definitely changing. However, I think what's really important is that a lot of the athletes believe that, they need to be eating a high amount of protein. Like I said, luckily, there's enough research out there right now showing that they need to have the right carbs as well. So I'm really glad that that's come in and that, protein thing is going down. The protein thing is growing more with the Weight Watchers, not so much with the athletes. I think the athletes are better informed in that sense. Now, what I would say is what's very important from a macrobiotic approach and an Ayurvedic approach is we look at the body's ability. So see, when you get a cut on your finger, it heals on its own in a few days, right? If you don't disturb it, right? But if a person has, if you get an infection, the person who has good quality blood, like good minerals in the blood, good iron, good circulation, their infection will heal faster. But a person who doesn't is going to take longer, right? So the idea is that there's definitely a state of the body that helps a person have better energy or better healing. Everything matters, right? So my approach with athletes, and I've been working so much with amateur athletes in the last 3 years, and they've all been like really happy with their results and how they're feeling, and they're running better, they're, doing better strength training and all, is that the vitality needs to improve. And for the vitality to improve, there needs to be a certain balance on the plate. So in Ayurveda, we have Vat, Kapha, Pitta, which are basically energetics in terms of, just basically energetics. We can get into it at some point in time as well. And balancing those energetics gives you good prana, good energy, good life force. And that life force is what gives you the good energy for your sports. So it's not about the, narrow view of it's just that powder or a protein is going to do it. It's about improving your life energy. It's about improving your life force. Similarly, in macrobiotics, it's about improving your minerals, which are good for your bones, and so you'll have better energy. It's about improving your kidney energy. Kidney ki is called as your, related to your, helps the bone, hair, all of those help, but also your vitality. Your ability to have energy for longer time is your kidney health. So when you look at modern medicine and they look at, kidney health as just it's used for this, is this and this, whatever it is, it's very limited, but in the traditional system, each organ has a different energy, and there are so many things that matter. I'll give you another very simple example. Now, since my book is The Asthma Cure, and this is the kind of, information you'll find in there. You have the lungs on the top of your body and you have the kidneys on your lower back, right? Now, basically, when you eat food or when you breathe, you eat food and then it becomes, prana at some point. It becomes energy or it becomes nutrients and flows through at some point in your body. Or you breathe air and the oxygen flows in your, body as well. For both, the lungs and kidneys, both are important. But right now, we know only the lungs are important, right? Why? Because the lungs in traditional Chinese medicine are known to have a descending action, which means as you breathe or as you take in, good nutrients from your stomach and the nutrients reach your lungs and your whole body and everything, the lungs push the energy down, life force down.
Wow.
And then they take it to the kidneys. Now the kidneys are supposed to hold it, and their work is to throw away the minerals that are not good for you. I mean, to throw away the toxins that are not good for you, and to keep the minerals that are good for you, right? And then when your minerals are good, your bones are better, your body is better, your digestion, your nervous system, everything starts to heal.
And it's all connected.
And it's all connected, right? So if somebody has weak lungs, like the asthma cure is not just about the asthma, but if somebody has weak lungs, they're not going to be able to detoxify well. Their body is not going to have a better... So, there are organs of elimination. Like lungs is an organ of elimination. Kidneys is an organ of elimination. Our intestines are an organ of elimination. So we need to strengthen the organs of elimination so that the elimination and detoxification happens daily normally. When these organs are overloaded and they're not functioning well or they're very weak, again, overloaded with excess food, excess fat, excess saturated fats, excess flour, sugar, all of that, when they're packed and they feel burdened, when they're burdened, they don't function to their optimum capacity. And if they don't function to their optimum capacity, the original purpose of eating well and having good energy is lost. And that's why some people have diminished energy and some are better. So my work in nutrition with, most of my clients is to get their body's energy back to its original state, to get the organs to function better. And some of them may need remedies because, there's a long stay history of not eating well or something. So they may need like a liver supplement or a liver remedy or a lung remedy. They may need some remedies for like 4 to 6 months till the body rejuvenates and starts feeling better, along with eating a good diet.
Wow.
So that's the approach. That's
Amazing.
The holistic approach.
That's brilliant. Please tell me, I want to underline what you just said about the organs of elimination.
Right.
Please name them again, just so that...
Absolutely. The organs of elimination are your lungs, and then you have your kidneys, and then you have your bladder, and then you have your intestines. So these are the main organs, even the skin. And the skin is the largest organ of elimination, actually, because the skin is the largest.
Toxins
come out of the skin as well.
Through sweat.
Absolutely. Through sweat. And also like when there is excess in the body and the body is, it's not passing through your natural channels, then it starts coming out on the skin.
Oh, wow.
And when your blood is very acidic, it starts coming out on the skin. So most of the skin allergies are very healable. It's just about figuring out where the acidity is And where is your excess? So my work, actually, when I work with people or with groups, is to see I'm almost like playing detective, because I'm actually just finding out what they're doing from morning to night, what their health habits have been recently, what were they 10 years ago, what were the major shifts they did, how is it, that certain weaknesses or certain choices brought about whatever it is. I analyze it and then I make a program for them based on that. So that's how it's more holistic.
Brilliant. And when we say elimination, it's just elimination of all the things that our body does not need. So whatever we
Absolutely.
consume, from that, certain things the body does not need, certain things it doesn't need.
So I'll make this easier.
Yeah.
So when we eat food, right? We eat food, it goes, from our mouth, it goes to our stomach. From the stomach, it goes to the intestines. Then finally, from the small intestines, the nutrients get absorbed into the blood. Now from there, it flows all over to all the organs, the blood. And the blood carries the nutrients to every organ. Now, if the organs are, if what we're eating is very clean and, it's rich in healthy, natural, farm-to-table kind of foods, it'll start cleansing the organs, whatever was the overload over there, and eliminating and pulling it down. However, if we take cheese every day, if we take bread every day, if we take sugar every day, what's going through in the blood along with some of the healthier foods is all of this. So the blood gets tired, it starts depositing it on the lungs. It'll start depositing it in the arteries. It'll start depositing on the liver. It'll say, okay, I can't carry so much. I need to circulate. I need to move around. I need to be lighter. It starts like sort of almost depositing. It's in simple language, so to say. And when that happens over a period of time, the depositing, accumulation happens. And when there is accumulation of toxins, it builds and it builds and it builds, and it becomes polyps, or it becomes, cysts, or it becomes tumors. And that's what these are. And then that's why in the natural world, unless one is, reached a point where you really need medical intervention, and that's where it's wonderful. That's, there's a place for it in the world. But if we have the time, if something has not reached an extreme state, it's good to do it naturally and start melting it out. Like in the villages, they know, कुलत की दाल खाओगे, तो किडनी का स्टोन मेल्ट हो जाएगा, right? कैसे पता है उनको? Because उन्हें try किया, उनको पता है that it has so many minerals, and the kidney is the organ that removes toxins and keeps minerals. So when you give extra minerals to the body through the kulat ki dal ka dark brown pani, it actually cleanses the kidneys and it strengthens it. The kidney starts feeling nourished, nurtured. And when you have it, over a period of time, not too often because it's heating too, but, sort of included along with other healthy foods, within 6 months, it starts feeling stronger. And it says, now I'm strong. Now I'll detoxify for you. Now I'll eliminate for you. And that is the state we want to bring that the body. So both Ayurveda and Macrobiotics are about increasing the body's potential, increasing the organ's natural potential. And when we do that, things happen naturally.
Brilliant. I'm getting goosebumps listening to this, honestly, because we're just so far from this approach.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And everybody's counting calories and is counting, nutrients, or is trying to make diet charts and counting protein. It's totally away from the natural holistic. Yeah. That's why it's called holistic approach.
I mean, our world is like full of hyper-palatable, designed foods that are designed to make you consume so many calories in one go.
Absolutely.
Like you can wrap it, like you can consume 300 calories in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You can do that easily.
There's an example I've given, forgetting the calculation behind it. But it's really interesting. Basically, it was an example actually first curated by one of my teachers, Vern Verona, and he's really amazing with these smart, sort of ways of putting nutrition out. So I was inspired by that. He did it about an apple pie in the US, So I said apple pies are not a dessert in India, so I made it gulab jamun.
Sure.
And I calculated, the whole thing around gulab jamun. So basically say a gulab jamun has some, 10-15 spoons of sugar in it, and each spoon of sugar takes about X feet of sugar cane. So you end up having 2 gulab jamuns, you're actually having 25 feet of sugarcane or some number like that.
Wow.
Now on a normal day, a person who's living naturally in the fields, in the village, in wherever we are, do we go and pick up 25 feet of sugarcane and eat? No, it'll hurt our teeth. We cannot do it. Yeah. But here, in a matter of 5 minutes, we do it so quickly, right? And we call it a snack. And we're like, oh, that was just a snack, not even a meal.
And we don't stop at 1.
And we don't stop at 1 and 2.
So we're consuming a field.
Exactly. So the whole idea of excess, and that brings me to why intermittent fasting has become so popular, right? We are coming from a world of excesses. And so intermittent fasting is working because then the body's taken overload. So when you eat less, people are like, wow, that feels so good and that's so amazing. So that's why it's become so popular, because there's just so much excess it is removing from people's diet, and they're beginning to come slightly closer to natural. Though I feel intermittent by itself, just like veganism by itself, is not complete. As long as you're doing intermittent or vegan along with the principles of balance, the principles of balancing in Ayurveda, Vat, Kapha, Pith, the principles of balancing yin and yang, the opposites in macrobiotics, as long as you're balancing those, then you actually get deeper, more long-term benefits.
Educate us on both these that you just mentioned.
Right. All right. So we have Ayurveda. So Vat, Kapha, and Pith. So these are the three doshas, they say. Vat literally translates to space and air, right? So it's lighter. It's like space and air, so it's much lighter. Then earth is, Kapha is earth and water. And Pith is fire and water and earth. This is just the elements part of it. Vat basically is lighter energy because it's air, as air and space, right? So there's so much space, so it's lighter. And so when people have a Vat dosh, they might have lighter bones. They'll start getting osteoporosis, arthritis, those sort of things, But because they have a lot of lighter energy, they have a lot of intellectual energy also. So then they'll have, very sharp perceptions, intuition, intellect, those sort of things, spiritual energy, subtle energy. It's the subtlest energy amongst the three, because it's the lightest, it's the subtlest energy. So there are, behaviors, there are personalities, there are personality traits rather, behaviors, personality traits, as well as health conditions related to Vat, right? If a person has a sensitive digestion, Vat issues. If the person has more flatulence, Vat issues, right? Person has more bloating, Vat issues. So a lot to do with, a certain kind of problem. Now, Kapha is earth and mucus. Now, mucus is a very interesting thing, since you asked earlier too. Mucus we get even from brown rice. Halka se to mucus hota hai, yeah, or any grain. We even get from atta roti, some amount of mucus. We even get from pasta, right? So all these things, when we have in moderation, that light mucus is perfectly fine. Okay. But as soon as we get it to the fatty, high saturated mucus of cheese and butter and milk and, excess amounts of saturated fats or sugar, excess amount of sugar that becomes high mucus, that is what creates the heavy kapha. Now, for kapha, they say, is a body type which is a little bit, it's earthy, so it's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit more grounded. They have more stable energy, more, grounded energy. They have more connection to earth, so they'll have more caring, sort of softer energy as well. Those are sort of the personality traits. But when you have good kapha, you have all those sort of traits. But when you have heavy kapha, the fat doesn't move out of your body. There's stubborn fat happening. There could be heavy negative emotions people could be carrying that they're not letting go of because the body's holding on to it, so there are pros and cons to each situation depending on the dosha. Fire is earth and fire, so that's very, it's what helps. In Ayurveda they call it the agni, so it sort of helps digest most of your food and your toxins and remove them from the body. So it helps eliminate the toxins from your body very well. It helps a certain analytical sense and intellect, all of those. But if Agni is too much, it'll give you like pimples. Young girls these days are getting pimples. That's heat coming out. It can give you more rashes. It can give you more anger.
Is that a dosha then?
It's a dosha. It's a dosha issue. So everybody usually has at least one, sort of dominant dosha and a second next one, which is dominant as well. I mean, we have all three. Everybody has all three at all times. But which is more...
varying quantities.
In varying quantities, but which is more dominant for somebody. So somebody has a lot of... they could have liver disease if they're pitta problems. They could have anger issues. They could have irritability issues. So when an Ayurvedic doctor or a holistic practitioner will see somebody, they'll see... So similarly in macrobiotics, they'll say when the liver is overburdened with yang foods. Yang is more masculine foods, which is like animal protein and too much of salt, too much of hard-baked foods, those sort of things. It's overburdened. Spice is more yin. So maybe I should break down a little bit of the yin and yang a little bit. So there is one energy and it sort of expresses into the 5 elements, like I said, for both macrobiotics and Ayurveda. in Ayurveda, it goes into 3 doshas, and in macrobiotics, it goes into yin and yang. So now yin and yang is nothing but, imagine one side we have expanding energy and dispersing energy. So it's like expanding and dispersing. The other side we have contracting energy and downward gathering energy. The exact opposite. Now opposites exist, that's why there is form. That's why the human form exists. That's why flower exists. That's why a tree exists. That's why a dog exists. The form comes in because opposites exist. Because if there was only dispersing energy, something would disperse for so long till it became nothing. Nothing was pulling it in the polarity, in the opposite direction, right? So there's a polarity between these two, a different, you could say, a dance happening between these two within every creature, everything on the planet. So in human beings also, there's a different dance happening in each human being of these. Both of these, yeah.
Energies,
both of these energies. And right in the center of this is whole grains. And so people who are going on a low carb diet, they're also affecting the harmony of yin and yang, the flow, the circulation, the suppleness of good health and longevity that grains give, And the grains, beans, as I was saying, the thali system Indian is very well covered from a macrobiotic perspective. Now, foods that are more towards the corners, which are more extreme, would be like having eggs, meat, too much of salt, or having sugar, alcohol, coffee, things like that. So when those foods come into the daily diet, it upsets the yin and yang of the body. It's not just about, ki thodi si calories extra legi, so I'll just run a little bit more.
Wow.
It's when it's upsetting the yin and yang, the suppleness of the body, the expansion and contraction of the body, then the fluids of the body are not moving easily, or certain crevices of the organs have contraction happening. So, blood circulation is not going there. So, of course, there are a lot of genetic predispositions, what we are born with, our strengths and, weaknesses, and our current habits, or last 3 years of habits, last 6 months of habits, last 2 months of habits, everything begins to affect us.
Sure.
And so, so there's a basic, you could say there's a balance happening between the yin and yang energies, and
this expansion and contraction, do you want to expand on that a little bit? Because
sure.
There are different organs and they're doing different things.
Right.
So you're saying the body is divided into organs which are
also
dealing with
different, but each organ has yin and yang happening. So for example, imagine a flower, right? A flower is just, sort of blooming. It's got a certain energy to it. When it's over blooming and wilting, when it's opening up even more and it's almost wilting, it's opened up too much, right? Or when it's shriveled up, that's just an analogy, it's contracted too much, right? Neither is the shriveled up going to help, neither is this wilting going to help. The full blooming flower is what's going to be health for a longer time when you maintain it at that, right? Similarly, for the body, why do people have these big tummies? Why do people have a lot of different issues, weights in different parts of the body? Because certain organs have lost their original elasticity and suppleness, which basically means, in energetic language, the yin and yang is gone off. In simpler language, the elasticity and suppleness is gone. So something could be more, stretched out, something could be more contracted, and then what they're eating, the blood is more acidic. There's more,
how does one figure out? So let's say people are storing fats in different parts of the body. How does one figure out what could have expanded, or is there a
there's not
or do we not even need to get there?
We anyway want to work with, overall reducing the fat and, toxin or the excess in the body. But there is a way to see it as well. But this is not a very scientific way. This is more traditional folk medicine. So going back to traditional folk medicine, it's, we have like our, forehead has certain signs. So like if you have a single line in the middle of our forehead, which you'll see, many people out there having, that basically means that your liver is contracted.
Oh.
So if you have a lot of darkness around your eyes, it means the adrenals and kidneys are weak. If we have like a lot of swelling in the lower lip, which a lot of people nowadays have, like triple the size of a lower lip.
Mm-hmm.
And actually fashion models try to do it more, thinking it's good, to have. But that basically shows your intestinal health is not good. There is a lot more inflammation and bloating happening, and the digestion is off.
Okay.
And the cheek areas, are connected to your lungs, reproductive. So like that, the corners of the lips are your duodenum. Each organ has a place on your face, on your body as well. And that's why in Ayurveda, you have pulse reading,
Yeah.
you have facial diagnosis, you have expression diagnosis, you have, the doctor, when he's interacting with you, they're reading so many layers of you and your being, more than just what you can write down in, and calories and nutrition and scientifically, So it's beautiful. I mean, we come from the beautiful, from a country that has Ayurveda.
Yeah.
And from the Far East, macrobiotics, modern macrobiotics is being merged with it in so many ways. And we shouldn't forget the traditional, wisdom that we have.
Wonderful. Before we leave the thread of weight loss, let's make this section of the podcast the only podcast you'll ever need to watch if
Sure.
weight loss is your goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
The most important thing in weight loss my first approach is to stop dairy and sugar. Obviously, if they have a lot of weight, they don't have that skinny vata body. They have a more kapha in the body, also. So I would definitely say stop the sugar and dairy for a certain time. Maybe for some body types, they say a little bit of organic ghee is fine. Those are the main things. Then we want to come to what grains we want to introduce. So I look at the person and I see which grains would be helpful. So between brown rice, millets,
So not
barley.
all grains are good for everyone?
All grains are good for everyone, but not all grains are easily digestible at the same time. So introduce 2-3 grains at a time. And after 2-3 months, introduce another 1 or 2.
So
and then
build your
introduce one.
capacity to
Build your capacity.
digest them.
And then I see what the person is used to,
Sure.
And also there's a huge confusion about whole grains, which I'll, come back to. Because when I ask people about, are you having whole grains? They're like, yeah, we have jawar roti. I'm like, no, that's a flour. That's not whole anymore. It's still great that it's a different grain and it's a great grain, but it's not whole grain still. I'm talking about the whole intact grain, even before it becomes dalia cracked.
Right.
So introducing whole grains,
Let's come back to this. Let's park this for later.
We'll park this for later. And introducing whole grains, definitely in your diet, but in limited quantity. So not in a very big quantity, not like plates full of brown rice, but a small katori goes a long way. Cooking it the right way is another thing we can park for later.
Sure.
And then having enough fibrous vegetables, enough sweet vegetables, enough God family vegetables.
What's that?
God family vegetables are lauki, tori, tinda, parmal,
all the ones that you hate.
All the ones that people hate. Pumpkin, pumpkin is not pumpkin, but yeah. But all of these are very amazing. They're very good for the glycemic index. They're very good for the, blood sugar in general. They're very good. They're supple. They're nice. They're soft. They're easy to digest. Plus having a certain amount of pumpkin and, cauliflower or broccoli or whatever one wants to have, carrots and, that bathua and greens and mustard greens, all of that is very helpful. Each season, it's a little different. Having the right, dals. So I'm very pro like green mung dal and I'm very pro kala chana. So I really push those into people's diet as much as I can. And if you have enough variety from the others, but don't miss out on these. On at least 2 times a week each if you want to lose weight, they really help. Then having if a person, that depends on the person. If a person has a weak digestion, I'll give digestive condiments.
Sure.
Like there's a sesame salt you can make at home. There are lemon pickles. If somebody has liver issues, I'll give them lemon pickle. Because liver is connected to is healed with sour. Homemade. Is homemade or made from an artisanal business that is using natural ingredients. That works as well. So like lemon pickle is good because it's fermented, so it's good for the digestion. Lemon is good for the liver because it's sour, and sour is what nourishes the liver. And when a person has a fatty liver condition, a little bit of sour in their food along with healthy foods really help. If a person has diabetes, a little bit of slow burning sweet foods like pumpkin, and round foods like chanas, both kala and white chanas, and those sort of foods will be very good. And millets will be very good for people with blood sugar issues. If a person has gut issues, I would definitely introduce brown rice and whole grains in general. If they have kidney issues, I would introduce some buckwheat into their diet, and barley into the diet along with the other grains, So it just depends on where the person is at, but around these. But nobody will go wrong, since we're doing like a takeaway on weight loss. Nobody will go wrong if they introduce everything once a week.
Right.
You'll still do well with introducing a variety of grains, variety of pulses, variety of vegetables, cooked in better cold-pressed oils, variety of soups, variety of steamed vegetables. So people are not used to steamed vegetables. But if you add steamed vegetables to at least one meal a day, it helps you drop weight.
Yeah,
You
so I
know?
think that's a good segue into cooking as well, because the
Right.
form in which you consume it matters hell of a lot. And a
Right.
lot of these healthy foods, like it's considered healthy foods are boring. So how does one make that?
Oh, there's enough ways to make food delicious. It's really the art of cooking if you want to cook the right way. I mean, we have such amazing spices in our Indian kitchen, from hing, jeera, dhania, like kalonji. They're like such amazing spices, and what flavors we can bring out with these. And you can crush and toast and crush sesame seeds and put it on top. You can toast and crush pumpkin seeds and make dressings out of it as well. So the idea is, I noticed years ago, I cooked for yoga retreats in Europe, in New York, upstate, and all over. And I noticed, when I was cooking like a healthier, lighter meal, if there were good condiments and good salad dressings, homemade style, not those bottled ones which you get these days and they call them healthy. No, not those, but the homemade ones that you actually make in your mixie and stuff with natural seeds and, flavors. If you had enough of those, people will have lots of salad. But if you don't have the healthy condiments and dressings, they will not have enough of the steamed vegetables and those sort of lighter foods, But like I said, it's really playing detective. So when I'm talking to somebody, there are people who will say, give us only Indian food. Stick to an Indian diet. I'll be like, okay. Some people will say, we want Indian at lunch, but do not give us Indian at dinner. We get bored,
Of
Some
course.
people will say, so it's so varied that I can create something that's completely Indian, and I end within weight loss with the God families and all of these things, and I can create something which is, a mixture, and I can create something which is not that Indian as well. So it's just a matter of the person sitting in front of me, and I hear them and make something accordingly.
Amazing. Yeah, beautiful. So let's come back to the point of whole grains. You said you're not counting dalia and all of that, and just the grain. So apart brown rice is simple to understand.
Brown rice
You
is
have
a
that
grain, right?
Yeah.
You have amaranth, rajgira, which is an actual grain. It's a round, tiny little grain, and you puff it. They puff it and make laddus out of it during the Navaratras.
Okay.
And then we have that.
Okay.
Yes, those ones. Then, but if you cook it in the kitchen and add a spoon or two of it in your khichdi, it really makes the khichdi good, and it's so rich in calcium.
Wow.
And it's a superfood, amaranth. It's like it has its own. In the ancient times, it was called little giant.
Wow.
Because it was so tiny, but it had gigantic health benefits. Okay. And it was used by the Aztecs a lot in the ancient times. And they, some of them use quinoa a lot. Some of them use, amaranth, rajgira a lot. So combinations of different grains, and there are different kinds of millets that we have. So
and reduced rotis, then you'd say.
Reduced rotis in the sense, don't have it three times a day at least.
Processed at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, reduce rotis, but I'm not saying that you need to eliminate it here. All I'm saying is don't have it 3 times a day. Have it once a day, and sometimes skip 1 or 2 days in a week. Yeah. That's
no, of course it's, nutrition is, of course, a knowledge problem, but at the same time, it's also a behavior problem.
It's absolutely.
And
that's
because of various
that's why
reasons.
coaching helps. That's
exactly.
And education helps.
I'm a huge fan of coaching. I think everybody needs a coach for pretty much everything, but it's just that not everybody can afford.
Right.
Those who can't afford should just follow these broad principles and educate themselves more.
Right.
And I think taking your own health in your own hands, maybe getting into the kitchen more often yourself, is a great thing.
That's absolutely. Burning oil in the kitchen is not good at all. So, the way that a lot of the cooks come, they're going from house to house, or maybe they're not as, educated on the subject, or they don't care enough, or they have too much pressure. They might be doing 7, 8 things at the same time, and they're, maybe the people living in the house are putting pressure on them. So they end up just putting one thing in one kadai. The oil is smoking. They make something else, and you're just at the end of it having food that's acidic. So the way you cook makes a big difference. And that is a whole different picture. Like brown rice is very healthy, provided you soak it and slow cook it. And my Insta page has a beautiful recipe I've explained exactly how to make it. Like a video.
Yeah.
And but if people don't make food the right way, it can feel heavy. Or it can feel acidic.
Recently switched some my big poison used to be my mother cooks this beautiful jeera rice, white rice. It's, and I could have like I think tons of it.
Right.
Yeah. And it was, and you can't stop at, you
A
can't
little bit.
at any
You
point,
can't.
for
You
sure.
can't. It's
And
a
and I've noticed various other things. Like I've used CGM also at some point. I've experimented with various things.
right.
And I used to see the spikes and the falls after that. It was insane. And I recently switched to brown rice. Like just this much
Yeah.
fills you up, and
Yeah.
you're
It
like,
does.
you're
It
done.
does. And so
Mm.
one thing is I think everybody out there should keep in mind is that while you're shifting your diet, don't go into any extremes.
Mm.
Introduce good stuff, eliminate the wrong stuff. What your favorites are, keep them in once a week.
Yeah,
Keep them there and just make them better quality.
sure.
So, improve the quality. So if a person likes dessert, just don't have a sugary dessert filled with dairy and,
Yeah.
Cream from outside, but have something from a better brand.
Yeah.
These days, there's such lovely brands creating such lovely desserts also. You can just order in or you can make something at home, teach your cook. In the worst case scenario, just make like date laddus.
Yeah.
Just put dates and some, almonds and cashews in them and make it into laddus and they'll stay in the fridge for a week.
Yeah.
And it's delicious when it's in that form,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So yeah, education, and then experimenting
practice.
with things, and as long as you understand the broad principles of what's good
Absolutely.
and what's not.
It's a process.
It's a
We've
process.
gone a long way from the original way of doing things.
For sure.
So it's going to take us a long way to walk there too. That we shouldn't forget that it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Golden words. I
It's-
think,
yeah.
beautifully said.
Yeah.
Somebody has who's been on my podcast before, Sehat Singh. So Kulvinder Singh is the guy. He has this funny character called Sehat Singh, who tries to educate you on health in funny ways in Hindi. And,
Okay.
yeah, it's a pretty good one.
I
So
should check it out.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's
Yeah.
it's a really good one, and he has lots of good one-liners in Hindi.
Oh,
Like
wow.
super funny and fun.
Oh, that's,
So
yeah.
he had said, so he on the podcast said, दिक्कत वहां आती है विपिन भाई जहाँ पे लोग अगले दिन से ही साधु बन जाते हैं कि
Yeah.
अभी तक
Exactly.
मैं दिन के 20 सिगरेट भी पी रहा था, अभी तक मैं अल्कोहल भी ले रहा हूँ, और अगले दिन से सब कुछ ये बंद
Yeah.
है और एकदम सब बॉइल्ड खाना है, और then how is that going to last?
How is that going to last? Absolutely. Absolutely. You can do a little detox for 10 or 12 days,
Yeah.
but there has to be sustainable for
Which is
sure.
where coaching really helps, because coach can just walk you through this whole process.
And they feel it's okay for me to have this. Some people are like, I still remember Dr. Trehan,
Mhm.
from Medanta.
Medanta. Mm.
Yeah, years ago, he had flown me to Goa to their house, and they wanted to be introduced to macrobiotics and maybe help with the cancer research section of Medanta, and he wanted me to be part of some projects, at that time. And so I was cooking some things and presenting to them, him and his wife and family, just in a more casual way, like more like a holiday for a week, and then just introducing them to concepts. So I made dessert, and I made like these chocolate chip cookies, but absolutely natural and date-based and really delicious. And he came back late night from somewhere one day, and we all said, okay, we missed the dinner, but let's have the dessert.
Yeah.
And he had the dessert, and he's like, can I have this?
Yeah.
Is this allowed? I'm like, yeah, of course. It's not like healthy food is not delicious. You can have delicious food and enjoy it, So I get remarks like this from so many people out there who are like, can I eat this? Oh my God, am I allowed this? I'm like, yes, you're not to deprive yourself. The body is not to go into a deprivative state as well, so.
Yeah, and if you're going to be unhappy with this, you're not going to be able to stick to it. And
Absolutely.
then so it's
and there's a very old saying that between the will of the body and the will of the mind, the will of the body will win.
wow.
So if you
Let that sink in.
yeah, let that sink in. That's why you can't go so against the body as well, but smart. The idea is making smart choices and be making aware, conscious choices and allowing yourself to grow into what you want to.
Amazing. I'm good friends with Milind Soman and his wife Ankita.
Okay.
These two and Milind's mother Usha Soman. They three of them have come out with a book just now. It's called Keep Moving.
Wow.
So their approach to nutrition is also very, very similar, very holistic, whole food based, and all homegrown pretty much. Barely any processed food. And they have a wonderful life. Like they're
that's
super
amazing.
happy and amazing people.
And
to be around.
Milind is also like athletic, right?
Oh yeah, he's a long distance runner. He used to be national level swimmer in his early days of modeling and stuff. But the reason I bring that up is in that book, Ankita was reading a quote from the book, and it goes along the lines of this only, that anything that you're practicing, like depriving the body of, like something that you like to eat and all,
Yeah.
you just need to learn about the dosage and have it, because otherwise you're just being violent, and being violent, you cannot heal the body.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I butchered the quote for sure.
So I
but
work with the what you're saying, the quantity of what you're eating,
yeah,
but I also like emphasize on the quality.
yeah,
Because in the modern times, most people have such a weakened nervous system that too much of the like somebody will say, मैं थोड़ा सा dessert खा रही हूँ आज, थोड़ा सा coffee ले रही हूँ कल, थोड़ा सा something ले रही हूँ. So you do about 8 different things and thinking मैंने तो बस एक बार ही हफ्ते में किया. But you've done 8 things in 3 days or 5 days, which cumulatively adds up and begins to affect your digestion, the inflammation, and your nervous system. And so that's very important. I think we have forgotten, of course, we're concentrating so much on gut health and all of that. But I think like gut health is overemphasized. It's not just about gut health. It's also about the inflammation. It's also about your blood sugar. It's also about, the nervous system.
Honestly, what's
All of
not
it is
connected?
what's not connected. It's so important
Absolutely.
to sort of look
Yeah.
at everything. And why is yoga so popular? Because at the end of the day, you're stretching and you're stretching your nervous system, no? You're basically cleansing. Everything comes down to the nervous system and receiving information and intuition and, strengthening your spine and the nervous system. So, yeah, we forget the value of some things while we just go so deeply into, gut health. It's not just about gut health.
Sure.
There's a lot out there.
Talk to me a little bit about healing.
Yeah.
What is it? What's healing? So you talked about, in your book, you've talked about asthma, healing from.
Right.
Is there, when you use the word healing, do you mean something bigger? Do you believe in God?
Yes, I do believe in God as a universal principle.
Okay.
So definitely, there is an energy, there is a state, that people get into, which is when they're closer to balance or closer to God. Like,
Okay.
that sort of a state is what I would say. And all of us can tap into that state, and nobody is, the one thing I hate is when people say, I'm enlightened, I mean, you know how people come up with these
Yeah.
terms or these gurus and all, and
Sure.
I mean, you just know a little more than others in the world of so much knowledge and information, and what so many dimensions that we haven't explored as yet. Just because people have explored 3 and you've explored 10, they sort of go like way too, and then they want pedestal worshipping and those sort of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I feel there is just so much out there. Sorry, what was your question? I forgot for a second. I got off track.
No, you got off track, but it's a good off track, because people who claim to be enlightened and being learned about everything, there's just something so wrong about that, because this beautiful quote I'm reminded of, and I don't know who it is by, so I'm sorry, I can't remember kiska hai, but it goes something like, as the ocean of my knowledge expands, so does the shore of my ignorance. Because the more you learn, the more you realize how much there is to learn and you don't know.
No, exactly.
So yeah, look
and
at
they say we've only, we've only used so much percentage of our brain. And so like, there's so much more to know and learn.
Yeah.
And that's part of one of the things that excites me about macrobiotics is, and, eating more grain is that the grain stalk, if you see the grain stalk, and I can send you images for this as well. If you see the grain stalk, it has this sort of a pattern on it, and if you see a spine, it has a similar pattern.
Wow.
So the grain actually nourishes the spine. So the theory is, and I think that's closer to more, the theory or the understanding is that, from apehood to manhood, how they show the apes becoming slowly closer to looking like man, and then having an erect man, and then more hair, and then lesser, and, going into the actual the human that we look like, but coming that whole diagram that happens, that started happening as apes started farming of grain.
But then that's
cultivation of grain. Cultivation of grain led to improving the spine and getting it more up, like this grain stalk itself, because the grain stalk is, rooted in the ground and is reaching out to the sky, more like the human body, feet rooted into the ground. And we're like living and reaching out to the intuition and life and, all of that. So that's one of the theories, that it's the cultivation of the grain crop that actually nourished our spine and hence nourishes our brain. Now, this is not something that's going to happen in like five days of eating grain and you're gonna, like the brain's gonna get affected. I'm talking about evolution, like several hundred years and how it's come about, So from that perspective, all these diets on paleo and keto that completely nullify grains and carbs, I'm just like, no, like you can't mess around with evolution of the human brain and the human mind just because you get a temporary high with the excess fat, saturated fats, and the sugars, some of them.
Yeah.
But most of them don't take sugars as well.
But the grain was also a cause of the problems, according to Yuval Noah Harari in his book *Sapiens*. He says, "जहाँ से ये farming और ये domestication नहीं, but farming जहाँ से चालू हुई,
cultivation.
So wheat in particular,
right?
वहाँ and this is where we are today, right? So in every home, we are just eating rotis made out of
yeah. So the problem is
गेहूं का
excess.
आटा.
The problem is our choices and our excess. Nature didn't have any problem. I mean, when it was being done at a natural pace and a natural way, it was perfectly fine. The problem happened the day people started genetically modifying the wheat or making it softer, ki roti zyada soft ho jaye, taking out a lot of the bran from it, the fiber from it, or making it in excess, right? जैसे सोयाबीन के साथ हुआ था साउथ अमेरिका में, right? Farmers started, because in the US people started turning vegetarian or vegan. They wanted more soya butter, soya sausages, soya ice cream, soya, like everything soy, right? Soy based. So the whole soy industry increased so much. For the commercial aspect, farmers started growing only soy and then depleted the soil, because what about, growing different crops and in moderation? So the whole idea is when we make extreme choices, problems happen. Neither is soy bad, neither is wheat bad. It's our body and state that has reached a state certain people can't take those things. So as soon as we regain our energy and regain our balance, a little bit of either is perfectly fine. But again, that's why having roti too often is the problem. But no, I don't think wheat is looked at, by me, I look at wheat as a digestive problem, as a nervous system problem, and the quality of wheat. If you have the right quality of wheat and you have it in moderation, along with other whole grains and a lot of other foods, it's fine. But because there is a lot of depletion, maybe for certain things like thyroid, for certain things like, blood sugar issues, autism, whatever the, sort of problems are, when they reach a certain extreme, when the body reaches a certain extreme state, then the digestion is very weak. Then the gluten of the wheat begins to affect because it's sticky. See, why did wheat become so popular? Even think about that, no? Wheat is the only grain that back then, it made bread. Because it had that sticky gluten, the stickiness was so nice, it felt so chewy and nice, they made it into pasta, they made it into bread, they made it into everything, right? So basically, it's the man's thinking that overstretched wheat into a diet when it wasn't needed. That caused a problem.
And man's incentives.
As well, So when we go into the whole taste factor, कि एक आलू के परांठे की जगह 10 आलू के परांठे हफ्ते में खाने हैं, या एक डिजर्ट की जगह 2 डिजर्ट की जगह 4 डिजर्ट लेनी है, या एक ग्लास थोड़ा सा घी एंड पनीर की जगह 4 cubes of cheese लेना है.
Sure.
That's what causes all the problem.
We didn't even evolve to digest those cubes.
Yeah.
It has so much. And when you read we don't even get good cheese here. Like the ones that you get here are you get better cheese in Europe, at least better tasting for sure.
Yeah, and you get some of it is natural. Artisanal cheese in small quantity would probably be okay for anybody who's not vegan.
Here. I should probably.
There are a couple of brands I've seen around that have some decent amount. So maybe
But these Amuls and ones that you get, these cubes, these they contain very little cheese and there's everything else in it.
There would probably be. I haven't done an analogy of that, but there probably might be more oil in it even, or certain substances that make it creamier and fattier, that give that fat satisfaction to the tongue and the body, so that's why.
Amazing. It's all about balance.
It's all about creating a balance.
We did a podcast with a poet yesterday and he's written some amazing poems and he was talking about Ravan and Ram in different ways and it's incredible. Like you should tune into the episode when it comes out.
Yeah. No, I will certainly.
Yeah.
I will certainly.
Tarika, a lot of people are, so it's a good thing, which is that a lot of people are getting on to getting healthier pursuits. So for example, to people trying to eat healthy or exercise their way into health and fitness. What's the biggest mistake that they're making today?
So the question is how people who are already trying to get healthier are making mistakes,
Yeah.
right? That those people. I think one of the biggest mistakes is high protein.
High protein is a
High
mistake.
protein is a mistake. Like too much concentration on protein is what I mean, right? Then the
I think
second,
that's also that also translates into a broken relationship with food, I guess.
it
Isn't
is. It is. And it's also the high energy, you know, and then there's like this excess amount of exercise that is happening, you know, sometimes because they're eating the wrong foods and then they're compensating with a lot of exercise. You know, people will have a glass of juice in the morning with a sandwich or a poha or something, you know, and that's something everybody does.
And juice is considered healthy still today. It's
Still
terrible.
today. Or they'll even have a fruit bowl and they'll be like, we'll
जैसे
start
आप
with
कुछ
the
नहीं
fruit.
खा रहे हो, आप कुछ healthy ले लो, आप juice ले लो.
Juice le lo.
How's
Yeah,
that?
exactly. That's like concentrated sugar and, you know, even the certain vegetable juices are fine maybe twice a week, or if something seasonal is happening, you know, like a smaller half glass or something. I still remember years ago when I was, you know, in my 20s, I was getting a lot of digestive problems. And when my doctor asked me, I was in the US and my doctor was in India, and he asked me, what are your symptoms? So amongst all the symptoms, I said, मैं आधा glass juice से ज़्यादा अगर पी लूँ ना, people are always offering you juice. मेरा पेट दर्द हो जाता है. And I start falling sick and I start getting like dizzy and I don't feel good with it, you know? And so, yeah, of course, juice is not healthy, but mixing fruit food combinations, which is mixing fruit with cooked food, mixing, you know, milk and dairy with food. These days, people are making yogurt and, you know, fruit ka smoothies and things like that to reduce weight. All sorts of things are happening. So, getting a little more aware, not mixing like, you know, not having rajma and having like mango after that. You know, that's just like, you know, it's just like a recipe for flatulence and bloating and things like that, certain things. So food combinations is very important. Excess protein, excess, the whole ideology that एक extra dessert खा के, you know, 5 minute extra treadmill में कर लेंगे.
Sure.
That's also not so, you know, not a great idea. Then I think missing out on healthy whole carbs, you know, like whole grains basically. So having it in the right proportion for your body type, and also understanding not following cookie cutter approaches that are available out there.
Sure.
You know, you go online and you see this is good, let's do it. This is good, let's do it. You know, the people who are on my diet, and for them coconut water is not healthy, you know, and they're acha khasa healing, their lung disease, asthma, this, that, and suddenly they go into having coconut water. I read somewhere this is very good. I read this was good. I added this also to my diet. I said, no. When did your weight loss stop? When did your wheezing start? I mean, different people I'm talking about. And it all traced down to the time that when they use their own mind from all they seeing from the internet to add into the diet, besides what I had curated for them as per their body type.
Yeah.
So educating ourselves on our body type and eating just anything and everything just because you think is healthy without understanding whether it's healthy for you or not is very important. So I think those are the bigger mistakes. Awareness is less.
Amazing.
You know?
Yeah. And I think absolutely it's a clutter of information that's out
information
there.
out there. It's easy to fall for that if you don't have the information. I mean, I feel like had I not studied macrobiotics and Ayurveda, and I would, you know, the kind of person I am, I'm definitely progressive. Even I would be following a lot of stuff and wanting to keep, you know, sort of updated. But connecting with the better people, you know, connecting with Ayurvedic workshops, connecting with macrobiotic workshops, connecting with more holistic nutrition people who really walk the talk and know what they're talking. Somewhere the ancient wisdom is coming in, connecting to that information and imbibing and learning from the good people who they perceive as good and wise is important.
Wonderful. Let's help our corporate folk who are in their
oh my God,
who are in, you know, they sat in a chair 12 to 13 hours or maybe even longer sometimes, and they're stuck in traffic, they're driving, they have stressful lives and targets, and at the end of all of this their boss is not happy. So and they're forced to socialize, and in the name of socializing they have to, like, it's almost forced drinking that happens. So let's begin with first, what is alcohol doing to our body?
Alcohol is, you know, just it's just excess sugar, concentrated sugar in a way, right? So it acts a lot like sugar in the body, so it offsets our blood sugar. Now, you know, when we talk about blood sugar and glycemic index, a lot of people's mind goes to कि वो तो डायबिटिक लोगों के लिए, कि जिनको डायबिटीज है उनको देखना है कि उनका ब्लड शुगर ठीक है कि नहीं, हमें थोड़ा बहुत देखना है पर इतना क्यों देखना है? No, actually in macrobiotics, the basis of healing and the problem that happens underlying condition under most diseases is an imbalance in your blood sugar and inflammation. These are the two precursors to most health issues. Because when your blood sugar is stable, your hormonal system is stable, everything else begins to stable, and your blood sugar will be more stable with healthier foods in any case, right? So you're eating healthier and stuff. So that is one of the major problems, that it's excess sugar. It offsets your blood sugar. It creates definitely a lot of inflammation in the body. It burdens the liver, because the liver suddenly, that's what metabolizes it, and it, overburdens the liver. So again, organ of elimination, detoxification is not going to remove the toxins from the body. Then the main thing with alcohol, though, is that it depletes minerals from the body. And that is something people are not realizing, that minerals is, we talk about vitamins and fiber and those things, but not enough people talk about minerals. Minerals and trace minerals that are found in whole grains, along with everything else, found in whole foods, but also, the foods that leach the minerals out, like alcohol and sugar, weaken the body. And if it weakens your structure, then anything you're taking, your assimilation power reduces. So your digestion, ability to digest food, it reduces, because your gut is literally inflamed, and then the minerals are less. So your healing is slow. So mineral less, take it as healing is slow. And so your assimilation of food is low. So you're making all these efforts while the result is less. And you're like, I to do so much, fir bhi result nahi aata. Kyun? You need an expert to answer that question,
So
there are so
nobody
many
thinks
things
about the damage alcohol is causing in this way.
in this
Like
way.
we just think about it dehydrates the body and is bad for the liver and
Right.
and gives you a
And also
hangover.
fatigue. It gives you like an overall, like chronic fatigue is such a problem in the modern
sure.
days. And especially for corporate people.
Yeah, and sleep.
And
Affects your sleep.
Yeah. Lack of sleep is big. That's another whole topic. They say, an hour before midnight is equal to 2 hours after midnight. And these days you see all youngsters, when I consult some of the youngsters, I'm talking about 15 to 20-year-olds, and their parents get them to me. I'm appalled to see that all the youngsters have this club happening at night from 11 to 2 o'clock. And if you don't stay awake, you feel like you've really missed out. There's major FOMO happening, And it's almost peer pressure to stay up till 2, 3 o'clock. And it's really bizarre, So sleep is a whole, your body rejuvenates, heals. So many things happen, while you
for
sleep.
sure. Restorative process.
Absolutely. And that's really off for the new generation.
Yeah.
And many people.
And you touched upon blood sugar thing, that people have this perception that you need to worry about the blood sugar levels only if you're diabetic.
Right.
Dr. Peter Attia, who I follow and love the man, and for various reasons, he's an expert, he's an MD. He for himself, he tracked whether it's beneficial for me. So when I'm not diabetic, so let's say blood sugar of 140 is considered diabetic. So he said, what if I'm like 110, or what if I'm at 90? Is it more beneficial? Am I better off? And the answer to that he found through various experiments and tests was that he's better off. The lower it is, the better it is. The more stable it is, the better it is.
Right. Even cholesterol.
So even if you're like at 130, you're not diabetic, but you're just like this much away from diabetes.
Yeah. So
pre-diabetes.
Calling somebody diabetic, calling somebody autistic, calling somebody XX, whatever, these labels and names are just names given by the modern world, right? Of course, they help in diagnosing a disease, healing a disease, all of those things. But energy levels, so even like you said, 130, we're approaching it. We're still going into that zone, and we're still feeling all those pre-symptoms, they're there of everything.
Yeah. Wonderful. For corporate people, what would be your advice then? These stressed out,
for corporate
amazing people.
The amount of stress and amount of work. See, for them, the best de-stressor is having whole grains, So one, I would say for them to take at least a grain from the house, even if you
Sprouts, would you say?
Sprouts
or
sprouts as well, but by grains I mean whole cereal grains. And by whole cereal grains I mean brown rice, millet, barley, whatever it may be for you, amaranth, quinoa. Have some amount of those grains. Take at least one grain to work. So I say at least, or dalia with vegetables. So you take the grain, even if you have the dal and sabzi at work, it still works. But if you take the whole meal, that's even better. That's of course a step ahead. But I'm saying for people who can't, if they don't have the time, if they can't do it, at least take your grain. That is creating a certain integrity in the body. That is creating, fiber needed for your gut. That is creating an anti-inflammatory effect. That is improving your blood sugar. That is creating the center of the plate, So somewhere at least is better than everything else. So yeah, including definitely working on your whole grains. Second, the quality of your snacks and what you eat outside, the bad oils and all. Be really careful with that. People have so much of samosas, jalebis, white, cheese and bread sandwiches in the evening. Rather, just take your nuts and seeds. You take your dates, or you take some good snacks. These days, you get lovely bars as well. You can make a little sprout salad, take some anar. There's so many things we can take as a snack.
Right.
Rajgira, Amaranth bars you get, lovely stuff you get, laddu. So it's not like you have to deprive yourself, but you have to be very mindful. They should be very mindful of the quality of what they're having. That's very important. So grains, quality, definitely the biggest markers which is applicable to anybody is even more applicable to them to stay away from commercial dairy and sugar. Those create sluggishness in your body. And you're getting sluggish, but you have to work long hours. So what do you go to? Coffee. And then you take coffee to keep yourself awake, or you take a lot of chai to keep yourself awake.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I went to a bank in Jaipur some 20 years ago for a talk. Like really long time back. And they actually told me that they have 18 to 25 cups of tea a day, bankers.
Wow.
Back then. Now there's a lot more awareness, so maybe not so much now.
It'll still be
close enough. 15 or 8 or 7, that's a lot of tea. I was like, are you serious? Like, what are you even talking about? Like, how can you have 15 to 20? They're like, sales ke liye, iske liye, meeting, every meeting, jahan jate hain, wo chai le aate hain, peeni padti hai. So you always end up having tea after tea, so unmindfully all the time. And that makes, so your teas and coffees to be down, dairy and sugar to be down, whole grains to be included, better quality, or, snacks to be included, and exercise, not sitting down and working continuously. Get up every little while. There's so many videos out there for how to stay fit while you're working on the chair. On an office chair and table, and do some workout, walk a little. Yeah. There's some lovely movements out there, and be mindful about it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Superb. It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for making time. I think we should do more episodes when you get time, and we should definitely. I'm really keen on doing one on cooking in particular.
Oh,
let's do that. Let's make our cooking,
that is
because
very big.
Ghar ka khana is supposed to be healthy, and it's considered healthy. Ki ghar ka hai to healthy hoga, but it's like, I'm telling you, like I can say this with confidence. 90% of it is unhealthy. Yeah. The way it is cooked.
That's the way it's cooked nowadays. It's the way oils are burnt, like I said, smoked in our own kitchen, or too much of oil, overcooking of the vegetables, pressure cooking of your dals. What happens is they say the center of everything is that has power. Like our center has all the organs, no? And the center of the dal is what has the nutrients or has the energy as well. And if you pressure cook dal 4 CTs, or you pressure cook rajma 7 CTs, you're actually like bursting the entire dal or the rajma, and the nutrients are getting all spread out, and they're not integrated enough for the body to receive it in that way anymore.
Wow.
And so the better way to do it is, yes, rajma needs, a pressure cooker. I bring it to 1 pressure and simmer cook it for 45 minutes. And that is a better way. So for different things, either
or soaking is a good idea.
Absolutely, soaking is necessary for beans, and it's necessary for whole grains. It makes their nutrients more bioavailable. It softens them, makes it easier to digest as well. Soaking, slow cooking, some things quick blanching and cooking, some things steaming, some things oilless, some things with oil, some things water sauteed, some soups. So there is such a variety of things. The variety is missing. Nowadays, everybody is having roti, dal, overcooked sabzi, and, whatever they feel like having, some not even healthy condiments or things and stuff with it, or like deep fried papad with it, or a whole lot of other stuff with it. So it's too similar. Like there needs to be that variety helps health, and variety of healthier things, of course, not the unhealthy
So
things.
we've just announced the topic of the next episode.
Absolutely.
Let's do that.
Cooking. Let's do something around cooking. There's a lot to
Thank you so much, Tarika. It's been enlightening. We just talked about we shouldn't use the word enlighten, but it's been educating. It's been expanding. It's been an expanding experience for me to share all the information with you, and your questions have been so interesting and so relevant to what is going on. So I hope it helps to some people at least. It'll
Yeah.
definitely help me. And I think the best part about me doing podcasting has been my own journey of learning so much, meeting some amazing people who make time for me. And so,
It's amazing. It's like my own journey of meeting people, and even when I'm doing workshops and when I'm working with different people on nutrition plans, it helps me understand what is the new problem these days. Like what is going on out there. I learn to solve it better. I learn to understand things. I hear things from them. I learn more things too because they're also like, talking to doctors and stuff. It's really interesting.
wonderful, Tarika. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you as
thanks
well,
a lot for
Vipin.
making time.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.